My wife crossed the only line I ever set with her. How can I forgive her? My wife and I have known each other for 10 years, and got married in 2018. We have very different lifestyles. She's a very devout Mormon and I am not religious. We found some way to make it work. It was a hard road, but there are some challenges still, but we love each other very much. She has never met my biological mother. My parents were divorced long before I met her, and I broke contact with my mom after I turned 18. My mom was extremely abusive towards me growing up. She physically abused me and my sister regularly and tried to frame it on my father. She was able to manipulate a doctor to give me multiple medications growing up and she'd steal the meds. Her dirt boyfriend also tried to be abusive to me too. I cut my losses and cut all contact with my mother and her family. So did my sister. My parents, dad and stepmom, didn't approve of my wife at first because of her religion, but they get along now. When my wife asked me when she'd meet my mom, I told her she never would. She's a violent and terrible woman and she has no place in my life and I didn't want her involved in ours. I also told her not to contact anyone in my mom's family. Recently, my mom showed up at my work, which she had no knowledge of. It got ugly, and police had to be called to remove her from the property. It was such an embarrassment. When I got home, I told my wife, and she just had her, oh shit look on her face. I asked what that was about. She confessed she reached out to my mom and told her where I worked because my mom wanted to make amends. My wife's beliefs are that everyone deserves forgiveness and doesn't believe something could be unforgivable. I told her that violated the one thing I told her was out of bounds and didn't even tell me until shit hit the fan. She of course has been apologetic. I told her we'd get there, but I needed to get through it. I've been sleeping in the office at home, and we've barely spoken since. We are supposed to travel to her parents for Thanksgiving, but I'm really considering staying home with the dogs so I can sort myself out. I'm not sure how to get over this. Comment. This would be akin to my husband bringing the person who molested me when I was a child back into my life. This would be an absolute deal breaker for me. My spouse is my safe space, and if they took that safety away there is nothing left. I am so sorry. This is actually something a Mormon would do. Part of Mormon culture/doctrine is that you actually need to forgive everyone in order to go to heaven. Boundaries are just not typically observed if they think you will benefit from their intrusion. They want you to go to heaven and think that requires you forgiving everyone for everything, even your abuser, rapist, loved one's murderer, etc. I think this is not uncommon in the more extreme versions of Christianity. Depends on the generation. The older the Mormon, the less tolerant of divorce they're likely to be. Still, culturally it's very frowned upon. Mormonism as taught from the pulpit doesn't accept the idea that there are any good reasons for divorce except, maybe, infidelity and/or abuse. Even then, contradicting messages are given. On a local level, it can be significantly worse. When I was still in, there was a woman being SAD by her husband and she was told by her bishop, think a part-time pastor but with zero training and no pay, that it was all her fault for not putting out more. If I had to guess how it will go if OP decides to end things or make overt displays of things not being 100% okay, it will be presumed there was some sort of infidelity on OP's part. The rumor will likely be he looked at pornography. If the actual circumstances were explained, I think the majority of them would still side with the wife. Especially since he isn't a member. Or she just thought it was okay to substitute her own judgment for his. Which is not cool and definitely frowned on in the Mormon religion where men are the priesthood holders and women are subservient. So she's not even a good Mormon. She a shit partner and likely a bit of a narcissist. Marriage is about sublimating the ego for the good of the whole, and if you can't do that, they are not a real partner. I feel so bad for OP. OP, take the time for yourself, or maybe go to your father and stepmother's place. I don't know if this can be forgiven, and the failure to tell you that she had talked to your mother just makes it even worse. So she decided she knew better than you about someone she had never met and had only heard bad stories about, contacted her and gave her your work location info, and didn't tell you what she had done until she found out the mother had created a massive problem at your job that required police intervention. I'm not sure if this relationship can survive. You may be able to forgive, but she has totally destroyed every bit of trust it took her 10 years to build up, and I don't know if she can ever regain that trust. You will always know she could do this again when or if you have kids. How can you be sure she won't just do this again? Kids should know their grandparents. I think divorce, as in all honesty she is so deeply enmeshed in that religious fucking cult, no matter what she does it will always have a hold on her and influence what, why and how she does things. That in turn will affect him for however long the marriage lasts. I say cut your losses, she's shown you who she is, believe her and get out. Story 2. My sister has been acting distant since my home was invaded. It took me a few days to be able to type this out. While I feel there was a present danger, I walked away unharmed. But the mental imagery just keeps screwing with my head. About a month ago I went out with my sister and some of her friends. It was an average night. We just went out for dinner and drinks. Come around 10, the group dispersed for one reason or another, so I chose to go back home. I called one of my friends over and asked if he wanted to watch a movie at my place. By the time I got home, he was already waiting for me parked on the curb outside. I went inside and changed into comfortable clothing while my friend found a movie to watch on Netflix. As I was changing, there was a knock on my front door. I went to answer the door, which was a careless mistake on my part, but that is what it is. There was a man standing there, mid to late 30s, average height, average build, and fairly well groomed. He asked for my sister. He knew her name, and he said he had seen her at the bar that we went to, and said this was where she lived. My sister doesn't live with me, and she hasn't since we were living with our parents. I told him she didn't live here. He insisted that he saw her come in my house. I told him again that she didn't, and that he needed to leave. This wasn't good enough of a reason for him. He walked into my house and pushed past me. I made an effort to force him out the door, and then he pretty effortlessly shoved me to the ground and started darting into my living room. I'm still eternally grateful that my friend was there. He charged at the guy and sent him into the wall before hitting him in the face. There was a brief scuffle after that, but the guy ended up running away. My friend grabbed me and locked me in my bedroom while he made sure the guy was gone. We called the cops and made a report. To my knowledge nothing was ever done about it, and I'd be thoroughly surprised if they ever investigated it. The part of the story that makes this seem scarier is the fact that I left the bar wearing my sister's jacket. It seems, and I'm just theorizing here, that he followed me home thinking that I was her. My sister has been incredibly distinct since that night. I told our parents about the incident, and they talked to her about it. She has been very short-worded around me. I tried to have an unfiltered conversation with her about a week ago, and she broke down in tears. She said the whole thing was her fault, and she hated herself for something like that happening to me. I reassured her that she didn't make the guy do anything. She wasn't responsible for the actions of somebody else. She told me she wished she knew who I was talking about, and that she wasn't sleeping because of it. I don't know if she's thinking the whole "it could have been me" thing, and she's scared that she was in potential danger, but her potential assailant had the wrong house, which is a very valid fear and certainly one to lose sleep over in my opinion. But it mostly seems like she is guilt-ridden. It's more than likely a combination of everything. How do I help to reassure my sister that she doesn't need to feel guilty? She's my big sister. My best friend. I love her and would never hold any sort of resentment towards her. How do I help her ease back into a normal relationship? Also, please be patient with me here. I don't know much on how to convey exactly what happened, and I have no prior experiences with this level of trauma. Comment. It's also possible she has a known stalker and doesn't want to tell you about it. But even if that is the case, she is doing what she needs to do to stay safe, and it's still not her fault that he did what he did. I'd try to treat her like you normally do. Consider getting short-term therapy yourself if it would be helpful, and encourage her to do so as well. Give her time, and hopefully it should heal. Yeah, but a long-term stalker would know what she looked like from any angle, would know her walk, and her body language, would know what car she drove, and would know where she lives. The simplest explanation is that it's just some creep from that bar that night who followed the jacket home. Thank goodness your friend was there. Consider reporting him to the bar. If they have cameras they might be able to see who it was and recognize him from your description. Maybe he's even a known creep. There are different types of stalkers. Yes, a common kind is when there is some kind of acquaintance between the two parties. But sometimes, it doesn't take knowing the other person, just seeing them of having the briefest interaction with them, like holding a door open for a stranger out of common courtesy, to set them off. And it's never something the victim did. It's the way the stalker is wired wrong. There are different types of stalkers. Yes, a common kind is when there is some kind of acquaintance between the two parties. But sometimes, it doesn't take knowing the other person, just seeing them of having the briefest interaction with them, like holding a door open for a stranger out of common courtesy, to set them off. And it's never something the victim did. It's the way the stalker is wired wrong. I don't buy that theory either. Giving someone a wrong/other phone number because they're creeping you out is one thing. An address is way different, and she wouldn't give your address out to someone giving her bad vibes, she'd make one up. At least I assume so, since you don't think this is what happened either. This guy probably saw you all at the bar and followed. Maybe he heard someone there say her name, or maybe he briefly spoke to her. It is possible he followed her to the bar from somewhere else, and then mixed you up and followed you instead of her at that point, but without any further info to go on, my best guess is he was a creep at the bar, thinking he was following a woman who had been drinking home. I'm glad you're okay, glad your sister is okay, glad you got a camera. If you don't have anything physical for self-defense, I highly recommend it. Pepper spray, at the very least. I'm a big sister to a brother, but still, I'd be positively riddled with guilt if something like this happened to my brother. I can't explain it. It's just big sister shit. I honestly think she's right to be terrified. It's not that she was, or could have been in danger. It's that she very clearly is in very real danger. You have no idea what this psycho wanted with your sister, and neither does she. Only he knows what he intended to do to her, and whether or not getting pounded deterred him. I know everyone always says this, and some people say it's over-recommended, but therapy. I think you should attend a few sessions yourself, because you have to be pretty fucking rattled. And she should attend a few sessions with you to help ease things back to some semblance of normal. And difficult as it may be to talk about, if you haven't already, it might be a good idea to discuss with her what he looked like so she knows what/who to watch for, or maybe even get an idea of whether or not it's some slighted ex or something. Maybe a sketch artist could help? Even if you have to pay for it. It's best if she knows exactly what this psycho who wants to harm her looks like so she can protect herself. There is a very real chance that he continues to wish to do her harm, and whether or not she survives that harm, and whether or not she'll want to have survived that harm if she does, is something you can't know.